Thank you, Pastor John, and I'm so grateful that you're here and look forward to hearing everything you've got to say. So, welcome.
Thanks, mate. Good on you, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thanks, Pastor Ben. Appreciate the opportunity. And we always love to be with our family out here at Dalby, hey? This is the centre of the universe out here. We love this place, seriously. And many of you would know that my wife was born here, right? Some of you would remember, maybe not, but it was a while ago. So she is an original Dalbyite, and your dad got saved here, right? Is that right? Yeah. So I think there's a picture of him somewhere on the wall. But, we love our family here at Dalby. It's great to be back, and got something I want to share with you in a few moments' time. Just before I get to that, I want to put the QR code on the screen if we could. If you've got a mobile phone, just open up your camera for me. Would you open up your camera and get prepared to take a picture of me? No, I'm only kidding. I'm going to get you to scan this QR code in a moment if you want to, right? But just if you could get it, just humour me and open up your camera. This is what I'm going to ask of you. Jesus said to pray to the Lord of harvest, therefore to send workers into the harvest field. We have some of our people, some of our missionaries situated in places. I think of the Smiths in northwest Pakistan, amongst the Pashtun people. The Pashtun people are 52 million people, right? Twice the size of Australia population. The amount of Christians that we know of out of 52 million, 1,500. Less Christians than in Dalby. Right? Think about this. Did you realise that if every Australian Christian prayed for 7 people, every person in Australia would be being prayed for? You take that to northwest Pakistan and to the Pashtun people. I was walking in your shopping centre here yesterday, where Woolies is there, and there was a couple of young blokes walking past, and there was a nativity scene, and there's baby Jesus, he was saying, pointing out the figures. Now, just by the way they were talking, I don't think they were church elders, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? The point I'm simply making is, they knew who Jesus was. If I could take you to northwest Pakistan, there's no nativity scene, there's no Christmas, and Yesu is a prophet. They don't understand him as God. Jesus said, pray to the Lord. Jesus didn't tell us to pray a lot of prayers. Not directly. When the Lord's Prayer, most of you know, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. He didn't tell us to pray that. He said, when you pray, pray in this manner. So that's not a that's not a clear direction on what to pray. That's, kind of pray like this. Start off with acknowledging God and pray for your needs and so forth. This, Jesus said, to do it, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out harvesters. Now, I'm not going to do a survey to get you to raise your hand on how many have prayed this prayer this week. Because my sneaking suspicion is, it probably wouldn't be a lot and we'd all be a little embarrassed. And the reason for that is, it's not a felt need for me, it's not a felt need for you, or maybe a little bit more for me in my role, but we forget. That's the bottom line, we just forget. So what I'd love to do, if you're open to this, and you can scan that for me, what I'd love to do is send you an email once a month to remind you to do it. Right now, we're praying through the 52 most unreached people groups on the globe. I won't bore you with details. I'll give you 2 or 3 sentences that focuses you on where these people are and what these people mean. And then I'm going to ask you to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send in harvesters, because we need hundreds of people to flood into these places, or these people will not know that Jesus is God. Now, this is very exciting, because when we read from the book of Revelations, when time is over, we see that there's people around the throne from every tribe, every tongue, every language, every people group. Every people group is represented around the throne. That tells me that when you pray that prayer, you're praying a winning prayer that God will answer. Because we see in the last frame of human history, God answered the prayer. And we see in the time of human history where Jesus walked the earth, he asked us to pray it. So why wouldn't you want to combine your prayer with the prayer warriors of antiquity and pray a prayer that is going to be answered. All you got to do is scan the QR code, put in your details, and you get an email from me once a month, not every second day, not every week, once a month. It won't be that long. It'll have an unreached people group. It'll have a few prayer needs from missions field that if you're interested in. And it'll even have a link to an online prayer meeting for 30 minutes if you're interested. But what I'm really wanting you to do is to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out harvesters. That's the prayer that we have to mobilise the ACC across Australia to pray, because that's what Jesus said. Not my idea, his idea that we've just forgotten about. So scan that, put in your details. Cost you nothing. Cost you 5 minutes once a month to pray that prayer. And my goal is if I can get 2,000 or 3,000 people praying that prayer, think about that, right? That's weeks and weeks of storming heaven. If we all can do it. And why not? Jesus asked us to do it, eh? And look, and while I'm just talking about ACCI, and I want to say, firstly, I want to congratulate this church on being such an outward-focused, missions-focused church. I honestly believe that you have the favour of heaven upon you because of the disposition of your heart. And I know that when I ask you to pray for missions like this, I know that when I'm speaking to a group of, most of you in this room, many of you just scan straight away. I'm there because that's who you are. I want to commend you for that. I want to thank you for that. And I want to inform you of a program that we've just started that may be of interest, maybe if not to you, maybe to someone you know. If you're a young person, this could be of interest to you, because we've just started an internship program for young people who have kind of finished uni, kind of that age group, early 20s type thing. It's not strictly that age group. You might be in your early 50s and you want to do this. That'd be okay too. But basically, it's a 6-month placement in an international missions house, one of the great places that we have around the globe, where you'll get involved in the day-to-day work. There's a 40-hour online course associated with it. Obviously, there are costs involved. The costs aren't great though, because you can live pretty cheaply, and all you can do is buy an air ticket. The tuition and the mentoring's all free. And then after 6 months, you come back to your church, ready to serve God and add power to that. You have to come back because your visa demands you come back, right? So that's a good thing. If you go and do an internship in a church in a capital city, you never know if they're going to come back, right? Because they might never come back, Pastor. But if they go and do an internship overseas, their visa demands they come back, right? So they're forced back. But look, if you know somebody who's finishing school or finishing uni and they want to do a 6-month thing, look, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great opportunity. I'd love my kids to have had an opportunity. I would like to have had an opportunity myself, to be really honest with you. And so we've made a way for this to happen. And our first intake of interns goes out in February. And so that's exciting. We've just introduced the idea this year at our last national conference. And our first intake goes out in February. They come back at our international conference in Phuket, which I invite you all to, in first week of August. And then we send out our second cohort. So that's the idea. So we're looking now for the second cohort that goes out in August, then comes back after Christmas next year. So just a couple of things to bring you up to date on and I trust that touches you somewhere in your realm of interest. I don't know whether you've ever articulated these words. My gut feel is you've probably felt them more than you've spoken them. But I wonder whether the last time, I can't stand it anymore, right? Maybe it was Tuesday week ago when the Reserve Bank put up interest rates again, and you thought to yourself, I'm sick of these people trying to stem inflation as a result of external factors and corporate profits. They keep screwing the little guy. I can't stand it anymore. And it's okay. Maybe some of you have got to go to a Christmas function. And there's people at the Christmas function, kind of related to you, extended family, and You don't see them very often, but you know you're going to be stuck there, and you're even thinking, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stand it for, right? You know, you got to make an excuse. I'm going to get out after 30 minutes or get out after a couple of hours, because after a couple of hours, I would have had a gutful. I'd have got to a point where I can't stand it. Or look, maybe it's a more serious issue. You know, maybe you're in an intimate relationship, and maybe you've said, I can't stand this anymore. I can't stand the pain. I can't stand the misunderstanding. I've had a gutful. Maybe you find yourself in a painful, like a situation with your health. It's just paining you, and you've got to a point, and you thought, I just don't know how much longer I can stand this disappointment or this pain. Maybe some of you are on a diet. You think, I can't stand not eating that food for much longer, and I want to give in. As I said, I think we've all said it. We've probably felt it more than we've said it. We're going to dive in a moment to what I consider to be an incredibly profound piece of information. It was a few statements that came from heaven. Jesus himself, the ascended Christ, the resurrected, then ascended back to heaven, he spoke to a group of believers who had a gutful and they couldn't stand it much longer. Jesus spoke to them, and what he said took root in their hearts. And the result of it taking root in their hearts was this. We actually have a recorded conversation. This is a historical document. This isn't in the Bible. This is from the archives of the Roman Empire. But these 6 men who were brought before the Roman proconsul, the governor, and he said to them, will you worship the emperor? And they said, we worship the risen Christ. And he said, I'm going to give you 30 days to think about it. Because if you don't say you'll worship the emperor, you'll be put to death. Go home, talk to your family, have a think about it, come back in 30 days and tell me what you've decided. To which these 6 men instantly responded, sir, we've paid our taxes. We've committed no intentional crimes. We've looked after our families. But we cannot worship the emperor because we worship the risen Christ. To which the proconsul said, is that your final position? They said, yes. He said, okay, well, you've left me no option. And those 6 men were used as human torches. And when they found out that piece of information, their response was, and this blew the proconsul away, this blows me away, they said, thanks be to God, as they faced death. Thanks be to God. It's on record that the Roman Empire was at first bemused, secondly overwhelmed, and thirdly acquiesced. They came around to the Christian way of thinking. They couldn't get their head around the way that these people coped with pressure, coped with disappointment, coped with pain with such joy. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get over the top of them with their power, because these people had this incredible internal sense of joy. There was a lack of bitterness against God. There was a lack of bitterness against their antagonists. They were able to stand. They had resilience. They had endurance no matter what. And where did it come from? I want to put to you this morning that it came from what Jesus said directly to them. And what we're going to do this morning is we're going to wrap our minds around that to see if we can let it encourage our hearts, so that you can do what Paul said when he speaking to the churches. He said, having done all, stand. Don't say, I can't stand it anymore. I'm telling you to stand. I'm telling you to stand. How do you stand? when everything around you is pushing you over? You're about to find out. I encourage you to lean in, to listen, because there are some incredible keys in what Jesus has to say to this group of people. We're reading from the book of Revelations, chapter 3. And as I said, this is Jesus speaking. Write the letter to the angel of the church of Philadelphia. It's a church there at Philadelphia. This is the message from the one who is holy and true, the one who has the key of David. Really important line there. What he opens, no one can close. And what he closes, no one can open. I know all the things that you do. I have opened a door for you that no one can close. I've opened a door for you that no one can close. I've never shared this message before, by the way. Normally when you go to a church, you preach your best message or something. This is the first time this one's ever seen the light of day. So I just sensed this morning that God has opened a door for you that no one can close. God has opened a door for you that no one can close. You have little strength, yet you have obeyed my word and did not deny me. Everybody in this room has suffered, right? The beauty of being a human being and not being an animal is that suffering has purpose. Has anyone ever had an animal that suffered? We had an animal. I was talking to last night to the boys. We had this little foal when I was a kid that was blind, and they said, the vet said, just put it down. There's no point. The animal will never be able to see, won't have a life. Just put the animal down. When you see an animal that's suffering, right, that's what you do. Let's finish suffering for that poor animal and painlessly and quickly snuff it out. But not so with humans. We are distinctly different from animals. Because for you and I, if you're a Christian here this morning, or if you're not a Christian and you're just visiting, if you're a human here this morning, I want to suggest to you that there is purpose in pain. There is purpose in suffering. Suffering makes the artist listenable, makes the person tolerable, and ensures the doors that are open to you. An open door in the Christian literature always speaks of the Christian message getting through. The Spirit says to Paul, I put before you an open door. Paul says, I have open doors. Open doors in the Bible always talks about the Christian message, the spread of the gospel. And Jesus says to this group of people, look, I know things are tough right now. I know that your community is persecuting you. Nobody's listening to you. You see yourself as weak. You see yourself as non-consequential, as not really mattering. There's a lot of hostility towards you, a lot of hostile people. It's one thing to be a cultural Christian. It's another thing to be a believer in Jesus. And I want to put to you that there are people in this room, and you felt like that in your workplace. You thought to yourself, no one's going to listen to me. No one wants to hear the fact that I know the truth, because they're all living these lives, they're all pursuing these things, and nobody wants to listen at all. Well, that was their case. You know what it feels like to be rejected and have others disdain you. But what happened was, Jesus said to these people, the very thing that you're suffering at their hand will inevitably become a wide open door. In other words, these people that are persecuting you, this is going to turn into all of them finding the message of Jesus. And if you find yourself in a situation where you don't think people are listening to you, where you think you're weak, right? You need to understand that what feels like a closed door will eventually become an open door, depending on how you respond. Did you get that? Depending on how you deal with the closed doors in your life, will have a direct result on the open doors that you receive. The way you handle closed doors will determine how many open doors you have. And what are closed doors? And these people, Jesus is saying to them, you're weak, right? The door feels closed for you. You feel like you can't get in. And for them, it was persecution, the Roman Empire. Many of you would be aware of that. For us, for you, maybe it's not that. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe you feel persecuted in your workplace. I don't know. Maybe it's a health thing. Maybe it's a relationship thing. Maybe you felt the doors of that relationship have closed. Maybe that person has said, that's it, you're out of my life, I don't want you back in. Maybe that person's heart you feel is shut to you and you can't get access into it. What is a closed door? Maybe it's where you expected to be. Maybe you expected to be married by now and you're not. And you think that door's closed. Maybe you've expected to be more wealthy than you are right now. Maybe, things haven't gone the way you thought they would and money's not there as you'd hoped and you want to do a bunch of stuff but you can't because, the bank's closed to you. It's a closed door. Maybe you're not as far down the track as you thought you were or you thought you could have been by now. What he's saying to you, what this passage is saying to you and what gives resilience is the understanding that suffering, closed doors, are never closed doors for closed doors' sake. The persecution of Christians in the Roman Empire, which is a historical fact, right? I think if you're not a believer here this morning, you're not sure about the Bible, you can't argue with this. But it led to the greatest open door for the gospel in human history. The closed door, the way they responded to the closed doors assured them the greatest open door in human history, and it changed the whole of their society. How you handle closed doors will determine how many open doors you get. So how do you make it pay? How do you respond to the frustration? How do you respond to the disappointment? How do you respond to the hurt? How do you respond to the rejection? How do you respond to the closed door that assures you the open door, right? That's got to be the question you're asking, right? And the answer's in the text, by the way. We read it a moment ago, and I trust you saw it. Because you would know, and you would have seen this, I've seen this, you would know that suffering can make you more human, but it can also make you more hard. It can make you more solid and strong, but it can also destroy you. And I've no doubt that you've seen people's lives be ruined. Suffering can increase your humanity, or it can break you. What's it going to do? And I think most of us in this room probably would say, well, I want it to increase my humanity, not add to the dysfunction or the brokenness of my life. I've got two pastor friends, and I've been in this movement, pastoring this movement for decades. I've got two pastor friends that had doors slammed in their face, right? Like blood nose, like slammed, and locked hard. They couldn't get through these closed doors. Both those guys today, as I look at them, and this is, open, this is 10 years or more in the making now. One of them has walked through an incredible open door and is just, living a blessed life with all kinds of opportunities that God has now opened up to them. And you can see the blessing of God. And the other person is still mulling around in their bitterness of the horrible stuff that happened to them. And you can just see how this one responded to the closed door and how that one responded to the closed door had direct result on the open door. One responded understanding what we just read in that letter. I'm going to read it to you again because you've got to understand this. You have to take this to heart. I'm going to read the previous verse. I read a moment ago verses 8 and 9, but I want to read verse 7. Write this to the angel of Philadelphia. This is a message from the one who is holy and true, the one who has the keys of David. What he opens, no man can close. What he closes, no man can open. The one who has the keys of David. The one who has the keys of David. Let me tell you something about keys. Keys speaks of what? I got the key here to my car. What does that say? Well, if I've stolen it, it says something, but I haven't. It's my car. I own it. This says that I have total legal authority over that vehicle. If I want to give it to Ben, I'm not going to, but I could. If I want to run it into a tree, I could. That thing belongs to me. I have the keys. You have the key. Most of you drove here in a car. You got the keys in your pocket of your bag or whatever. And when this meeting's over, you'll go to your car. You'll, click the button or turn the lock, whatever it is. You'll get in and you'll drive off, and no one will look twice because you have total authority to do that. Right? If someone's jumping into my car now without the keys, then we're all going to be looking, hey, what's going on here? Because he doesn't have authority. Keys speaks of authority. You know, they said Jesus spoke with authority. The reason he spoke with authority because he is the author of life. When you have a mother and a father, they have authority over their child. Why? Because they authored that child. And when you speak to that child responds to you because you have intrinsic authority over them. You fathered them or you mothered them. You gave birth to them. You have authority. And I'll tell you this. They can have an issue with any other human being on this planet and get on with life. But if they've got an issue with their mother or their father, that's going to haunt them to the day they die. No matter what they say about their mother and father, no matter how they try to shut them out of their life, your mother and father have power over you no matter what you try to say or do because they authored you. And author and authority come from the same root word. If you have authored something, you have authority over it. I remember being at a conference years ago, and a particular pastor was going to teach the conference this new song. And he's teaching this new song, and the guest preacher was there. The guest preacher came up and said, oh no, the song goes like this. And he said, no, this is how the song goes. No, the song goes like this. And then he found out the guest preacher had written the song. Right? How many know you don't argue with the author over how the song goes? He has authority. Exactly. Authority. It's the same word. If you want authority in your life, guess what? Author something. If you author it, then you can speak authoritatively about it. If all you do is speak about everything that you've just learnt about, right? You might have great ideas, you might be an expert, but how many know there's a whole bunch of experts out there on how to raise kids, but they've never had a child? They don't speak with authority. How many know that you can read a book and an expert will tell you this and the other thing, right? But then, 10 years later, another expert puts out a book and tells you to do the exact opposite, right? You shouldn't eat this, no, you should eat that, we should be doing over, we should be going over here. And experts can have one opinion one day and another opinion another day. Jesus is your author. He has authority because he is the beginning, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He has the keys. Now this is what you got to take home, right? This is what I've come here to tell you. When you suffer, you recognize he has the keys. You suffer under authority, right? If you take your suffering into your own hands and you think, well, I'm going to seek vengeance, I'm going to work my own way out of this, I'm going to, try to prise that door open with a crowbar that I got in my boot or whatever, right? If you think that you have the authority, trouble, folks, trouble. When you can suffer a closed door under authority, I got to tell you, there is an assurance of a mighty open door. Think with me for a moment here about Jesus himself, right? Did not Jesus himself suffer a closed door? You see, every religion thinks their God, has the keys, right? Every religion thinks that. But we are the only faith on the planet that has our God facing his own closed door. See, if you think, well, God's been pretty mean to me, been pretty cruel, really. I got these closed doors in my life. I got this closed door in my health. I got this closed door in my relationship. I got these closed doors in my finance. Where are you, God? You can think that, and you can think God's got this kind of naked authority, this kind of this dictator over me, and you think to yourself, I don't know, I don't know if I can trust this guy. I don't know if I want this guy in my life. Can I say to you, Jesus understands closed doors. Because it was in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? He said, God, if it's possible, take this cup from me. And what did he get? He got a closed door. And what did he do? Well, he tried to weasel another way around. No, he didn't. What did he do? He responded under the authority of the Father. He said, nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. Right? There's the model. And that's what he's teaching them here in this church. And that's the message this morning. Right? You've got to understand that. That's what he's saying to us. He's saying that when there's a closed door and you can recognize that that door is locked from the other side, then there's going to be a bigger door that's unlocked from the other side that no man can close. And you'll be able to walk straight through it. This whole business of him having the keys is such a big idea. In those days, of course, you didn't have one key to lock your house, In those days, and some of you have been to some of these crowded kind of little villages that they had there, and they still have them in the Middle East, where the thoroughfares literally like go through buildings. Like you could literally, on your way to the market, walk through somebody's living room. And what you wouldn't lock your house. You might lock lock your bedroom or put something up so people didn't just wander into your bedroom. But that's the way it was. And so you need many keys. But Jesus has the key to everything. And that was such a powerful concept that when these people were suffering at the point of death, they were able to respond under authority, and they said, thanks be to God. You see, the truth is, you never know how you're going physically till you get tested, right? You don't know how fit you are until you all of a sudden realise the bus has just pulled on the side of the road and I'm like 100 yards away, and if I don't get there, I'm going to miss it. And then you sort of take off for the next few moments and you're like, oh boy, I'm not as fit as I used to be. You didn't realise that, okay? You didn't realise that until the moment arose. You don't know how fit you are or how strong you are until the reserves of your fitness are called upon. And it's the same with you as a person, How you are when the door is closed is who you are. Did you understand that? How you are when the door is closed is who you are. And the reason why God allows closed doors is because without closed doors, you'd never know who you are. If you go through life, open door after open door after open door, you never grow as a person. See, Jesus suffered and died. The suffering of Christ was not necessarily so that we wouldn't have to suffer. Suffering of Christ was so that we would become like him. Because it's only through suffering that you can get an image, or you can get a clear picture of who you really are. If all you ever do is face open door after open door, you never know who you are. But a closed door brings the real you to the fore, and God wants you to know what the real you looks like so the real you can indeed be dealt with. Because anything else will fall apart. If you build your life on a vision, if you build your life on a person, if you build your life on finance, if you build your life on a house or on a thing, man, that's going to shake. And then your whole world will fall apart. You see, if you build your house, if you build your life on anything outside of Jesus, in this fragile world, you will become a fragile person. If you want to be a strong person, then you need to build your life on something that has a foundation beyond what this world can touch. And of course, that's Jesus Christ. And so that's why he does that. That's why he allows closed doors, so that you get to see. The only reason that Murray and Astrid and the family can talk about peace in this time is because they've built their life upon a rock, right? And then when the world gets shaken, they still have peace. People outside of Christ have no concept of this, no concept of it. And we have concepts. So if you're a Christian here today, you have a concept of it at varying degrees. Right? At varying degrees. But we're on we're all on a journey whereby no matter what gets stripped from us, we have that peace and assurance in Christ. That's why there are closed doors. And that's why if you respond to closed doors and you recognize His authority, God opens more. That's the situation for the church here is dealing with. And so I want to encourage you today, don't be a victim. Don't be bitter. Don't let the world get on top of you. Know that He has the keys. Know that He has faced closed doors Himself, but did so under the authority of the Father and had the greatest open door ever known in human history, that His name every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. He had the greatest open door. And no matter whatever it is that you're suffering today, you need to understand this. That closed door, you respond to it under the authority of the Lord. There is a bigger, greater, more significant open door coming your way. And one last thing, and we'll finish. In verse 12, the end of that little passage there in Revelation 3, says, all who are victorious will become pillars in the temple of my God, and they will never leave it. And I'll write on them the name of God, and they will be citizens in the city of my God, the new Jerusalem that comes from heaven from my God. The last thing is this is you will be a pillar in heaven. When you understand that closed doors lead to open doors, if you respond under the authority of God, and normally that has to do with under the authority of God's appointed people. Normally there's a person, an authoritative person, that makes it harder, that you come under. But if you can do it, and there's one more thing you've got to take to your heart, and that's this. And that's that also recognizing that you will be a pillar in the house of God, and you never have to leave it. I read a story, I come across a story of these Japanese POWs in a camp in Singapore, and they were being tortured. But they'd heard on the wire inadvertently that the Japanese, end of Second World War, the Japanese had surrendered, and the war was to be ended in 2 weeks' time. And then they talked about the torture and the treatment that they were receiving. All of a sudden was so much easier because they knew it would be over in 2 weeks. And they said they cried, but they could also laugh. The more that pain they felt, the greater in the evening when they gathered together and talked about it, they laughed because they knew 3 more days and we're out of here. 2 more days and we're out of here. And it became, it meant the exit was more glorious. And what we have to understand is that no matter what happens in this earth, there is something greater. There is an experience greater for us that we are in mere preparation for now. And that when you know that you are going to be a pillar in heaven, that just puts wind in your sails. It gives you a boost to be able to stand in the day when the world is trying to push you over. You get to see it from the perspective that it really is. A blimp in terms of your whole existence. We're only here for a very short time. We put a lot of stock into what's going to happen, this day and next year and the next 10 years, but in the context of eternity, it will mean very, very little. When you know that your suffering equals open doors, when you respond under the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ, and when you understand that your reward is eternal, that your reward is outside of the painful experience of this life, that puts the wind in your sails, that puts the steel in your backbone, that allows you to stand and historically transform the Roman Empire. It can transform this town, and can transform your workplace. When you feel like, nobody's listening to me and everybody's against me and nobody wants to know about the Lord and everybody's going off and getting drunk and doing crazy stuff at the Christmas party, and I go along and they mock me because I don't drink or because I don't get involved in their activity, and everyone's going off and having fun, and they're mocking me because I'm not sleeping with all these women or whatever it is that everyone's doing and I'm not doing it, and no one wants to hear what I've got to say. I feel weak. Just remember, Respond under the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ, and you will have a door that's opened up to you that you have no idea how wide it will be. I suggest to you, I put to you that this is the fundamental truth of missions. That when a missionary goes into a field and is rejected and disdained by the community, they respond under the authority of God, and over time, God opens up the doors. That's the history of the church, folks. And it's your experience too. Let's understand that. Let's rise up and let's live within it.